I remember that one day my friend was drinking like a Starbucks, like a glass drink, and it fell on the floor and like they just wanted to leave it. And it was like in the middle of like 71st and Continental. And I was like, no, like this is our civic virtue. Like there's people on wheelchairs that like come up and down this block. Like we have to pick up the glass. And then I started saying civic virtue and I'm like, oh my God, like it's in my head now always.
That was Vilinez Estevez, a founder of Forest Hill High School's Youth Informed Club. And this is Epicenter NYC. We connect our communities to news, information, and each other. I'm your host, Amber Castillo. Last year, Forest Hills High School student Salma Baksh found herself in a club aimed at discussing politics, but felt uncomfortable speaking up. Even with their best friend, Vilinez Estevez, by their side, the environment didn't feel right. The discomfort led Salma and Vili to look for a space where they could freely discuss the topics they really cared about. And when that original club fizzled out, another opportunity arose. Enter the Youth Informed Club. Their first meeting drew a packed room with students eager to discuss issues like gun control and Mayor Eric Adams' policies. Now the club's impact extends beyond their school, thanks to a partnership with Let's Talk Democracy, a civics education organization. This partnership has provided mentorship and resources. The students also collaborated with the Forest Hills Green Team, gaining skills like networking and handling press advisories. They even organized a panel at the Queens Public Library to address political engagement and voter education. Today, I sit down with Salma and Vili to learn more about the Youth Informed Club and what's in store for the future. Before we jump in, a quick message from our team.
Hi, I'm Mariana from the Epicenter NYC team. Did you know that anxiety, sleep problems, and muscle pain could be symptoms of long COVID? Take the steps needed to protect yourself, your family, and your plants. Get vaccinated against COVID-19. We can help you schedule your appointment and even arrange you right there. Email us at hello@epicenter-nyc.com or call or text us at 917-818-2690.
Now back to the show. Here's my conversation with Salma and Vili.
Could you guys say a bit about how it started and what was it that propelled you guys? Was it like one event or an issue that you were passionate about that you're like, yeah, we got to create the space to talk about it?
Well, for me personally, I was already involved in another club called Political Awareness Club in our school, but then it kind of trickled out and a lot of the meetings just didn't feel like a safe environment. I didn't feel like I could talk a lot about like a lot of the issues that were going on. I dragged Selma along to all of the meetings and like Selma had a lot of like great ideas, but like was afraid to like speak up in them. So after like the club trickled down, I remember that the club advisor of the club, like the teacher, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to continue, but I wasn't sure about it until I was in like my pre-calc class. And there was just in a pre-calc class, it's very interesting. My teacher was very political and we would have like in the first like 20 minutes of like the lesson we would have like random conversations about like social events and like we got into like a very interesting conversation and I just realized that a lot of my classmates were not really well educated or like knew how to like go about a conversation. I also had like flaws in that as well. So I was like, you know what, Selma, like we need to do this. Like we need to like figure out a way to like bring a space in that like people have a well environment to like have these conversations. Like it just cannot be in like a class. Like I think that we should have an environment where we can like have these conversations and also be educated and informed about them.
And when you say the political awareness club, it maybe didn't feel safe or what did that feel like? I guess for either of you, like Salma, if you want to tap into like was there something about the environment that maybe that you weren't finding there that made you nervous to speak up?
So I found they were very reactionary and it never felt like a conversation. It felt like an attack or a debate. It wasn't what I was looking for, which is why I stayed silent for basically the entire year, which isn't expected from me, I guess. When we made youth forums, our top priority was making sure that people felt comfortable enough to speak.
Are there specific things that you found like in your own club or that you were hoping maybe that you didn't find again in the political awareness club or, in classes with the random conversations that you were being intentional about that was important for you both in your club and maybe also in the events that you guys helped facilitate that was important to do?
I think for me, at least, when in our youth and forum like conversations and like our meetings, we're very connected. I feel like as a group, and like we can have conversations and like we understand each other. I feel like everyone in the group like kind of like melds well, and even if we have like difference of ideas, we can still like come out of it by learning something from another. And like even if we have the same idea, we still find ways that are different from like our like how our opinions like kind of differ. And it's very interesting to just get into like those little pockets of conversation, and like they're not aggressive or rash in any way. And I feel like the connection that we have with our like club members is very nice, and I really enjoy like the conversations, and like that's just something that like I just you just cannot have in like the other club that we went to.
Were there certain issues that you guys felt safe discussing in your own club that you didn't feel the same way discussing in other spaces or in general that you think is just very contentious and difficult to discuss?
I think reproductive rights and LGBTQ rights were two topics that we had the most people show up to, and like we had to do like two sessions every single time that we covered them. And I remember LGBTQ rights specifically was something that was very not taboo because they would have conversations about it, but it was very rash and aggressive and one-sided. And like if you had a difference of opinion, it would be very hard to like connect. And like while they are educated, they were just unwilling to see like another side. And that's completely different from what we do at our club. I don't think that the other clubs like tackled it in the way that we did.
Did any of the folks talk about like, similarly wanting a space like that was safe or like, wanting to educate themselves? Like, were there any like personal reason, motivation?
Yeah, I think for especially I think for like the LGBTQ meeting that we did, which I think was our like third or fourth topic that we ever did, a lot of people like came out and like spoke about like events that happened like the building that like like made them feel like unsafe, or like times when they felt like they couldn't like speak on like their emotions. And I think that that was one of the meetings where I really saw there are problems in our school building, and like this is like a space for people to come and talk. Another one was also immigration. When we did immigration, we didn't have that many people because there were like at least like three school trips that day. But the people that came out, we like asked them to talk about like their immigration story, and like we got to like understand a lot more, and like see that this space is like actually like necessary so people can come out and like share their stories, whatever story it is.
Were there other things that you guys maybe, considered or reconsidered or learned or changed between your junior year and this year in leading the club?
One thing that we really experimented with was how to go about discussions, because half of it was we want people to come in, and that often means that they're not coming in as an expert on whatever the topic is. I remember we tried out this format last year where we had researchers, and basically we would appoint a few people in the club to be in charge of taking apart a specific facet of the topic that we were going over. Like if the overarching topic is gun laws and perhaps how states are going about gun laws, or like mass shooting statistics and stuff like that. And we would break out into smaller groups, and people would basically rotate with these researchers to hear about different statistics and become informed. And then we would break out into a bigger group, share things that surprised us, and try to combine all of the knowledge that we had gone over. And the thing is, it was more work. We tried this year a very free form discussion. We've done events in the past. We did this one specific, it's called a deliberative dialogue. We did one about education with Let's Talk Democracy, which is one of our grassroots partners, and Nassau County Community College, their political discussion club. So the NIFI format essentially breaks an issue into three solutions. And the point of the discussion is to learn compromise and explore different parts that maybe you didn't consider before about how to solve an issue. So we tried that in our club, and yeah, students enjoyed it. It's a good, organized way of going about things, but we didn't use it every time.
Yeah, if you guys could talk a little bit about how exactly the introduction happened with Let's Talk Democracy and how you knew it was going to be like a good fit, or at least, good enough to collaborate on these projects, and also with the Forest Hills Green team.
I went to my school's AP of social studies because she had been my teacher in the past, and I needed some advice on running this club because I mean it's both of our first times like founding a club and being given the responsibility of building it from the ground up. And she told me about Let's Talk Democracy and suggested that I reached out to them because we had a lot of the same goals of educating, making sure that things are inclusive. So I got their contact information and I reached out to Ida. She immediately became a mentor for us because she had, by this point, about 5 years of grassroots experience. And she was very open to just helping us and talking us through all the little facets of like, so how do you structure these meetings? How are you doing outreach? How do you get people interested? It just kept building from there because then we started doing these online panels, and that's how we met Mark from the Forest Hills Dream Team because he was involved in a bunch of different community events. Like we just kept working together and meeting more people.
Yeah, at what point for both of you that you became more knowledgeable about your local politicians, elected officials, or, when that happened for you?
I've been always like interested in politics, but when it comes to locally, I feel like it's definitely started this previous year. I mean, like last year we were talking with Ida, but like other than that, I don't think that we were that connected to like the Forest Hills community until the end of last year leading up to this year. And because of that, I just remember the civics roundtable discussion that we had with our Queensborough president. I think that it was Donovan Richards. I think it was really engaging and it just made me want to get like even more involved. But definitely at the beginning of the year in our Reading People class, we were talking about civic virtue and then literally just became a part of like my daily vocabulary. Like I would be like, I remember that one day my friend was drinking like a Starbucks like a glass drink and it fell on the floor and like they just wanted to leave it and it was like in the middle of like 71st and Continental and I was like no, like this is our civic virtue, like there's people on wheelchairs that like come up and down this block, like we have to pick up the glass. And then I started saying civic virtue and I'm like, oh my God, like it's in my head now always. So definitely at the beginning of this year was when I started like realizing like the how heavily important our like local communities are and like community board house six, like it's so amazing because that's how we started with like Mark, mostly like our intergenerational panels through community board house. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think that community and just in general needs to be done to get more young people like you guys involved?
It has to really be a core responsibility to follow up on these kinds of things because they tend to fall apart when no one's checking up on them. And I think it's really important for students to meet the borough president, to know that he exists, to know that there are all of these different people in their community whose literal job is to serve them and their needs. Like if people don't know about it, then they will utilize those resources, and that's not the function of a democracy, and it doesn't work out the way that it should.
One of these expressions of like, like meet people where they're at or meet the community where they're at. I'm wondering if how that applies here in terms of, do you think that any kinds of, as long as, any kinds of events, as long as they're in person and are very inclusive, would feel like a welcoming kind of, or like a step in that right direction of engaging more youth? Or is it about like meeting young people at, in specific kinds of spaces?
Well, I think it has to be a little bit of both because, like, you're not going to get young people if you're not promoting it correctly or if you're not spreading it by, like, the right word of, like, mouth. It's limited in a sense because I think that the issue with, like, it's just the way that things are marketed. I feel like young people are just afraid to, like, show up, which is why me and Selma have, like, connected a lot of, like, juniors with Mark and with Ida so like they can like continue the legacy. But I feel like if it wasn't because of like us bridging like the gap, it just like would have been a lot harder for like them to be introduced. So I feel like it's just a mixture of like making sure that you're promoting it in the right spaces, like speaking to them directly to have like that connection and then having an in-person event to like have everyone together so they can actually see like what goes on is like important.
What has that kind of passing of the torch or, like making sure that legacy continues, what has that looked like? Are you guys training the like current juniors, or are there folks who are really already like pretty involved in your club?
So we have a few juniors, a few sophomores, and I had been trying to get them to be dedicated by offering them different kinds of opportunities. So Mark had told us about a climate summit happening for free at Columbia University. So we went on a trip there. We had a lot of fun. We learned about policy making, about climate change, like the actual science behind it. And I think giving those specific opportunities to go outside the school building and meet other people, because there were other schools there as well, was really good because it shows that one, this club can be really fun, that there's this entire world of people that you can talk to and learn from. And we've been sharing our resources with them, sharing our connections. We brought in Ida and Mark as guest speakers for one of our last meetings to talk about community organizing and also act as a segue into telling them that, we've been planning this event for a few months. We'd love if you come and help contribute to it. We've been trying to make sure that they feel comfortable with the connections that we've made and have the skills to moderate, to organize, to network, which is a lot of responsibility. And I know that in particular, like one of the girls is also leading our school's literary magazine, which is really similar to me because I have been leading my school's newspaper for 2 years. And you find that the students with the most initiative are also the ones who are juggling the most, and you have to find balance. So I'm hoping that they do a lot of the work right now so that when senior year comes, because they have a process laid down and they can hit the ground running.
Are there certain lessons though that you're hoping that that you've been hoping to impart, or maybe things that you learned while you were leading this club?
Say yes to everything, especially after I started this internship with Chalkbeat in the Bell. I have just said yes to every opportunity that they've laid in front of me, and that's what we did at the beginning of Youth Informed as well. Is that every time we met with Mark and Ida and they talked about B4 or the Civic Roundtable or something, we just say yes and we go. And that's how you get more involved and you stay open, you stay on your feet. So I hope that they continue to say yes to things. And I know that it will be tiring at certain points because senior year is very tiring, but it's something that I have personally found a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment in. And I have to say, one of the single most experiences that has encouraged me to grow has been this club and becoming a community organizer.
What about for you, Vili?
I think for me, it's just to be open and like to never like it's nerve-wracking coming into like a lot of like these events that you don't know, but just being open and like keeping an open mind is very important because for my first B4, I was very scared. I didn't think that it was gonna like do anything for me, but then like now I'm involved and I organize every single one and my mom comes to them and like my mom's gonna be a facilitator for one of them and like it's just like if you're just not open to things and if you're just like if you come in with like a negative mindset like it will translate, so to come in and with like a positive mindset and like understand that even though you're in a room with like people that may not be your age, they're just so welcoming and like want to know so much and they just want to learn more about like what we do and like and it's just very interesting. And I think that if it wasn't for my ability to like be so open about it, I think that I would have like been like scared and like run away. Like our first email change with like Ida was like, oh, like if you're up for it, like if you want to take a walk in the park, and me and someone were like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, you know what? I low-key wish that we took that walk in the park because it would have been like really interesting and fun. But it's just, yeah, it's like just being more open to like these events and like coming in with like a positive mindset is very important when you're meeting all of these new people, especially people that are like important, like your senators and like your Congress, like men and women. And it's just very interesting.
As you heard, while Salma and Vili prepare for the next chapters of their lives, their commitment to civics education remains strong. Salma will be attending Smith College, double majoring in government and education, while Vili plans to study biochemistry and public policy at Northwestern. Still, they're committed to making sure the Youth Informed Club continues to thrive. They're passing the torch, mentoring incoming seniors, and proving that youth can lead the way in political education and engagement. That's all for today. Thanks for listening and thanks for supporting us as we do our best to support our community. We couldn't do it without you. For more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at epicenter-nyc.com. Our intro music is All the Pretty Horses by Caravika. You can find more of their music on their website, linked to in our podcast description.